Welcome back to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by Drone Adair. I am super excited today because I have a good friend of mine who I actually originally met on his podcast back in 2020. The founder of Drone Launch Academy, David Young. David, thanks for joining me today, man.
Yeah, Cody, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, always good to see you. It's been a little bit, probably since Vegas, I think, is the last time. Oh, we
Yes.
text back and forth. You're always
Yeah.
good about the voice memos. That's like my favorite thing. It's like, let's just, it's great, right? It's just
Well,
get down to business and we can
I'm
figure
glad
it
you
out.
like it because it's way faster than texting. Sometimes it's annoying to receive them because you're like, oh, this guy wants me to listen to all this crap. You know what I mean? But
No, I love it.
sometimes just when we're talking, there's just too much to explain over just text.
Yeah, it's way more efficient. And I think it's just like, hey, you get the inflection, you get what's going on for the day,
That is
everything,
true.
right?
That is true.
So
Yeah.
it's good. But hey, I'm happy to have you on my podcast here, coming full circle. That's originally how we met. I think you put
Yeah.
out a post back in like March or April, maybe even earlier of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right after the pandemic kind of hit and you were looking for podcast guests and I was sitting at home, like we were all newly quarantined. So I think I was like, yeah, why not be on a podcast? And, I had seen a little bit of your stuff in the past from your Part 107 course. And yeah, I just reached out and we
Yeah.
recorded an
No,
episode a couple months later.
I'm glad you did because we were like, hey, if you're making over $1,000 a month with a drone business, like we want people on our podcast. And I remember I was scrolling through or just sifting through the submissions we got, and one of them asked like what kind of bracket of income you were in, and you're like 100,000 and up. I was like, I got to talk to this guy. And you're like, or what? It was 10K a month and up, or which is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And then that was the start of it. We chatted. I'm telling you, man, I try to get everybody to podcast because podcast is the best way to make. I'm like, it's just a great excuse to connect with people for 30, 45 minutes and kind of become friends, especially in your industry.
Yeah.
That's how we became friends. And then later on, I think it was later that year, we're like, hey, we're going to make a drone business like class,
Yeah.
and, do you want to be an instructor? And you're like, sure. I'm like, I would have never known you if you wouldn't have been on the podcast. So
Yeah, we dove
podcasts,
right into it.
yeah, they lead to a lot of good stuff, and they give you content. Just there's no downsides. I just keep telling people this. But yeah,
Sure.
no, that's how we met, and it's been great. You've been a great partner to us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, same, man. And like you mentioned before, yeah, we've done a lot of stuff. Some you've alluded to for sure. But it's been fun too to see your journey and kind of how you guys have also adapted and changed and grew as a company as well, and what you've kind of took Drone Launch from what it was in the beginning to what it is today. But I always like to kind of start, we can kind of tell more of how our stories intertwined as we go. But I started this podcast more for hearing about other cool people, right, in the industry. And, so far I've had some really awesome people on, and I think your story is unique to all of them, which everybody's is, right? But you came from a whole different world, obviously not in the drone industry, which I do see a lot of similarities too from other people. It's just like, how did you get into it? It's just like, well, I found an opportunity. But I think, from your standpoint, you worked for the FBI in accounting, right? Like you were
Yep.
not doing anything with drones. So
No.
do you want to
Well,
give
yeah,
us
not at
just a little bit
first.
of like start? Yeah. Give us a
Yeah,
like where
sure.
you were at, like how you started, where you kind of
Yeah.
came up from and how you got into drones
So
first.
I'll briefly go way back. When I was a kid
Take us
growing up,
back.
I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to be an F-15 fighter pilot. I thought that would be super cool. I guess it's probably like a little kid thing. Or like, I'm going to fly fighter jets. I joined Civil Air Patrol. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or people that are listening are familiar with that. It's an auxiliary of the Air Force. Think like Air Force ROTC, but for kids that are not even in high school yet. So I did that. We met at like a local Air Force base when I lived in New England. So we went to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That's where I had all the KC-135 refueling tankers and stuff. So yeah, I was all into that. But to get past a certain point there, like get promoted to a certain whatever, you had to go through something called encampment, which is basically like boot camp for little kids. And I was 12, I think, and that changed it for me, man. I was like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. People yelling
No,
at
thank you.
me. I had to do like having us run around, like we had to wake up 4 in the morning and like do jumping jacks and run. I'm like, I'm 12, dude. Come on, like
Yeah,
chill out.
this is not what I
Uh,
signed up for.
no, hanging pots and pans in the middle of the night. So yeah, I cried like every day, I think. So I was like, you know what? Switch it up. I'll be an airline pilot. That'll be good. So I kept that through high school. I applied to Embry-Riddle. It's a flight school in Florida here, and then Florida Institute of Technology, another pretty good flight school. They're a little bit more like an engineering school. I got in both of those. FIT offered me more scholarship money, and when you're poor and you're paying for it yourself, you're like, that sounds good. So I went to
Yep.
FIT for a year. I did get my pilot's license, so that's like kind of that was sort of my touch into aviation. So I got my private pilot's license in 2007, and then really realized I don't really like flying in small airplanes. They crash more than people realize. Like this is like not frequent, but like frequent enough training accidents to where I'm like, I don't know about this. I was really stressed out. I was like, 18 years old. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the stress of thinking that every time I was going to fly an airplane, thunderstorms in Florida were going to take me down. So I thought, I'm switching this up. So that's when I switched to like the accounting side. I switched to Florida State because that's where all my friends were. And I just did it. I didn't even know what business was. I was like, I'll do business. Like, what kind of business concentration?
Right.
Accounting, marketing, finance, this. I'm like, I have no idea what the difference between those is. But anyways, yeah, that's when I did accounting and finance, and then ended up at the FBI. So I worked at the FBI for about 8 years. I originally took the FBI job interview as a joke. They were recruiting for some reason at Florida State that year. And I'm applying to I don't know if this was like this at your school, but when you go to graduate, you like there's like the whatever part of the school that helps you get jobs, right? Career placement. And they have all these recruiters that come and like, hey, here's all the open jobs that people are recruiting for at Florida State. So it's like a couple like mid-tier banks and this and that. So I was trying to get a bank job because I'm like, I heard bankers make money, again, solid logic as a whatever, 20-year-old,
for sure.
21-year-old.
You want to make money right out of the
Yeah.
bat, right? Like,
I'm
give me
like,
as
yeah,
much back. I need to pay
right.
off this debt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I racked up like $60K in debt from 1 year at FIT. Maybe it was about 50. So I would have been mega poor if I would have stayed there. But no, so like I interviewed with a couple banks and I saw FBI and I was like, what? That'd be hilarious. I was like, I'll just do it as interview practice. I'm definitely not going to work for them, but I just think it'd be funny. So I did first round interviews. And I'm like, oh, that's actually surprising. And then I got an email that said, hey, we'll fly you up to DC, all expenses paid, to do a second round interview. We'll put you up at the JW Hotel.
Sweet.
This is back in the JW Marriott. This is back in 2009, 2010, when they were a little bit more, I think, had a little bit more budget room in their HR budget. I got to stay in this nice hotel. So I thought, well, shoot, at the very least, it's a free trip to DC. I'd be stupid not to go. So,
Right.
so I flew up there and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So originally it was in like a budgeting type role, doing like spreadsheets all the time and keeping track of spending and some other stuff, like put you to sleep, boring for most people, but I enjoyed it at first, at least. And then I switched to forensic accounting because I was like, I'm going to work at the FBI. I'm not going to work on like back office stuff the whole time. I need to work on something cool,
Right.
So I got my CPA license while I was there, studied for those exams, got through that. They were nice enough to pay for me to get a master's degree too, which was considerate of them. So I got a master's in finance from Johns Hopkins while I was there. They had a business school in DC. So I did that, and then I switched over to forensic accounting. So I was working on like white collar crime cases, like Ponzi schemes, fraud, some cybercrime stuff, some drug dealer stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. I did that in DC.
Pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but again,
you were living in DC at the time?
Yeah, we moved up to DC when I started working with the FBI. My wife is a nurse, so she got a job at Children's National Medical Center. It's actually one of the reasons I took the FBI job, because she got like her dream job at this really good pediatric hospital in DC on this like great floor. She was making like great money too. She made way more than me when we first started out. I think I made like 40. I think I made 40 grand starting off for the FBI, which I was like, that's pretty solid, But she was making, I don't know,
back then too,
60.
It's good money.
Yeah. So 50 or 60. So like as a newly
Right
married
out of
couple,
college?
2010, we were making almost six figures together. So dude, I was living high on the hog. But luckily we
Yeah, I bet, right?
yeah, we paid off. I think we used most of her salary to pay off my debt. So we got out of debt pretty quickly, which was good. So we were, I don't know, debt free within 5 years or so. I tried to be kind of conservative, hopefully,
That's
but
awesome. No, I mean, hey,
yeah.
it's a good life lesson right there. Get out of debt as fast as you can, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had a little. This has nothing to do with drones, sorry, but I used to have this little. I'm a
That's right.
spreadsheet guy. I used to have this little calculator. Anytime we wanted to buy something, it would take it, and I would punch the number in, and I would say, if I buy this item, instead of applying that to my student loan principal balance, I extrapolated it by the interest rate and the life of the loan and stuff, and I was like, this $200, game console actually costs $465, So that's how I convinced myself to just like shovel all my money back into my debt. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I know it was nice. We were trying to get our debt paid off before we started having kids and stuff. But sorry, I'll fast forward to the drone part. So I'm at the FBI. I'm working on a white collar crime squad. There's this guy, former military guy. He comes out of some special operations group. A lot of ex-military, they come to the FBI afterwards. It seems like a common landing place. So he was working on
Absolutely.
white collar crime stuff, and super nice guy. But he was one, I believe, who first showed me like, Dave, you like, or I don't even think he knew I had any aviation background at all. He was just like, have you seen this sweet video of these drones? And I remember it was like these FPV drones flying like they were in the scene from Star Wars, like going through the trees and stuff. And like, I don't remember which Star Wars it is, but they've got the little like vehicles flying, zipping through the trees. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I started looking into drones a little bit. And then I saw, oh, if you want to like people, I don't know how I got seeing, but like people are flying drones for money. I was like, what? You can get paid to do this? And I was into side hustles. I would take like accounting, consulting gigs all the time on the side. And so I saw that you had to do that. And I was doing some research and saw that you had to have a pilot's license at the time to fly drones. It was
Mhm.
like 2015. And I thought, well, hot dog, I got a pilot's license from back in '07. I was like, well, I'm going to look into this. So then I realized, oh, you had to have a 333 exemption. I'm like, what is that? So I started looking into that, and that's a whole rabbit hole, man. So I spent a few weeks
Mhm.
digging through that process and figuring it out and getting it done. And then I saw other people like advertising to help people with that process. And I thought, well, I mean, I figured it out. Like, it kind of sucks to figure out, but I feel like all I need are certain pieces of information from people, and then I could just do it for them. So I threw up a little quick website. It was a Squarespace website. Threw it together, got my form in there, and got it all integrated, and got it live. And then I'm like, all right, now what happens? So I tested out some Google ads because I saw other people running Google ads. I thought, let me give that a try. So I started running Google
What was
ads.
the first name? Was the first original name like was it Drone Launch Academy right off the bat or
Oh, no,
what?
no, no. I think that website was called like easy333exemption.com or something like
Okay,
that. Like
okay,
I tried
nice.
to play into the because that's what it was called, 333 exemption. So that was the original name.
Nice. That's that.
Um
Hey, well, I mean, you're very target market at that point, right? Like you're
yeah,
telling them
so
exactly what.
super
It's
niche.
like super specific. You're coming me for me to one thing and one thing
Yeah.
only, right?
We only
But
sell one
it was neat.
product.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, I started making more money filing FAA paperwork for people than I was making at the FBI within like a month. Like it just
that's
took
crazy.
off, which was cool, but
Wow.
that gave me very unreasonable expectations about starting a business. I had started other businesses before that didn't really go anywhere or do anything. But then I was like, oh, apparently all you got to do is run Google ads and you will become rich. Because like I must have just hit this little niche at the right time. So I was helping
Hmm.
people file 333 exemptions until the FAA finally announced like, hey, we're gonna make like a remote pilot certificate. Like we're gonna have a whole different thing. And so once that like was announced, that they were gonna be doing that in several months, like obviously you didn't need the 333 exemption anymore. So
Right.
I stopped selling it to people. Some people still try to buy it. I'm like, actually, I would love to take your money, but you don't need it as of like a couple months
Yeah.
from now.
Yeah.
So all those other people, at least, were fine. But so I think it lasted for, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 months and then dried up. I was like, well, it was a good run. But no, it allowed me to see like, oh wow, there's a market. The drones are a market. And so I was like, well, if there was a lot of demand for people want to get the 333 exemption, there's likely going to be a lot of people who want to take this test. So it wasn't even released yet. It got released in August of 2016. So I had gone to a conference and had met a few people in the drone industry, a few experts. Like one guy was a legal guy, another guy was a weather guy. And I was like, well, I should make a prep course for this test. So I had no real credentials other than being a private pilot, which, helped because I knew a lot of the airspace stuff and things like that.
Mhm.
But I thought I'm going to go try to legitimize myself a little bit. So I went and I studied for and got my FAA Advanced Ground Instructor certificate. So, I ended up learning a lot more about everything. But what that essentially does is it allows me to like sign off and be an endorsement on people's, so they can register for their exams. You don't actually have to have that for the drone test. It's more for like manned aviation. But I figured it would be
Yep.
it'd just be a helpful credential to have to instill a little bit more confidence in people that this wasn't a total rando,
Absolutely.
making a course. So I did that, which was harder than I thought, honestly, to study for and take that. But I did that process, got that, created the course, launched it, and did not do well. I didn't sell really any any courses because I didn't know what I was doing. I had a very unrealistic expectation of business. I ran a couple Google ads, they didn't work like I thought they should, so I shut them down. Yeah, it was a slow going at first, but then once I realized, like, learned a little bit about building trust with people and kind of building an email list and how to do marketing a little bit more. It took a while to kind of get rolling, and found some affiliates, and but yeah, it started going a little bit more. I figured it out.
Yeah.
So that lasted 2016 to 2018, and it grew through that time period. And then in 2018, it was doing well enough that I was like, hey, this is fun. Let me just see if I can try doing this full time, running like a drone education company. So yeah, April 2018, I quit my job at the FBI. I was living in Florida at the time. I convinced them to let me move to Florida, work remotely out of the
Nice.
Lakeland office, which I knew was a short-lived arrangement. But so my time was sort of running out with them, and so I kind of knew I needed to figure out something else or leave and go full time on the biz. So yeah, so we went full time 2018, and then immediately started kind of launching other courses after that, like because people kept saying, "Oh, cool, I've got my Part 107, or I got my drone license.
Yeah.
What do I do now? Like what else? What other skills do I need to learn, or what? Help me take the next step." So that's when we
Yeah.
started just asking people what they want to know and trying to link up with other industry experts because again, my expertise was basically aviation and, training people for the exams. Obviously I've flown drones a lot, but I'm not going to go pretend to be a, cinematography expert or, any of these other kind of disciplines. So our strategy over the years since then has been, have a good network in the drone industry, find people who are talented and skilled, and see if there's a way that it makes sense to work together to make educational courses and pay
And I
them
think
whatever. So
And I think that's smart, right? I mean, and obviously you know that like you can't a master at all or a what is it, an expert at all or
jack of
whatever
all trades is a
is a
master of
master of
none.
none. Jack of all trades. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but is a master of none, right? So it's like you be able to diversify not only your courses but also bringing in people that ultimately know what they're doing and can learn. People can learn from very experienced individuals that are also maybe don't have a platform to be able to teach what they've learned or what they've been able to do. So I
Yeah.
get one thing I would say is like so you were I just want to touch on a little bit because you kind of glossed over it a little bit, but like you were working full time still at the FBI while for about 2-ish years, right?
Yeah.
Until
Yeah. It
you
was about
like
2 years. Yeah.
really took that first initial like step of like, all right, this is my full time gig, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is a very similar kind of story from what I've heard from I don't a lot of our other guests, but also even myself too. Is like having at least a safety net or building a business while you might also be working at somewhere else, or you have different, you know, fuels and different fires, allows you kind of that ability to also say, hey, this is something that I love, or I'm exploring it as an avenue that I can do something full time, right? And using that as kind of a jumping off point for when you do scale it enough where, hey, this is doing great. Now I want to take it to the next level and do full time. So
Yeah.
I commend you for that because I think a lot of people too is like, I need to do this all or nothing. And that is not wrong at all either, right? But it's also like, hey, it
Yeah.
provides you a lot less of a stressful ease into something, I think, right? From from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah. I have opinions on that. I mean, I think there's pros and cons, obviously, to the
For
just
sure.
jump straight into it. But let's just say I would have jumped straight into it, right when I had the idea, or I launched it, right? And I didn't have any savings built up. Like, I would have left my job, I would have started it, I would have clearly realized that I wasn't making enough from this to keep going at that moment. So then I would have had to go on a job search again, or try to get my old job back, and I would have been go back to get another job. Um, and then again tried to continue building it. So that I don't even know what would have happened if that were the case.
Right.
But then I know that there is definitely some incentive to. I mean, because it was a moment after I quit my job where the savings that I had saved up dwindled, and I had like a couple bad months, and I think at one point I had about 2 to 3 weeks worth of like living expenses left in the bank. And I was genuinely like, okay, do I take the 2 weeks and try to like find a job, or do I somehow figure out how to like generate some income and figure this out? So there's something to be said about whenever you are forced to figure something out, like you tend to find a way to figure it out.
For
Um,
sure.
but I think there's a balance between that and just totally screwing yourself by quitting your job with no savings and no revenue. Because I
Absolutely.
think another thing
I
is you
wouldn't
got to have
start
like,
there, right?
yeah, no. And you gotta at least have some like what they call, product market fit before you go. Like,
Yeah.
if you're just hoping that you're gonna be able to find something, a service or product or whatever to sell, and you haven't like nailed that yet before you quit your job, like, you need to know, I can sell this to someone and
Mhm.
there is a market of people that want to buy it. Now, like, that'll obviously like always have some pain points or ups and downs or whatever. Maybe you gotta change marketing, but at least you need some some small track record of like, oh,
Yeah.
this can be successful, before you just like burn all the ships, as they
Yeah.
say.
It's not like, hey, I'm just gonna fly drones. It's like, okay, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna fly? Well, do you have any drones? Like, do you have any clients? So
Yeah,
it's a building up that business, or at least a mindset where that and you feel comfortable that you do have a good product
yeah.
or
I think I
service
had three
offering.
months. I think I had 3 months of money in the bank when I quit my job. But even, dude, I didn't even do. I wish I would have been more careful with it, because like I quit my job and then I like really looked a little bit closer at my accounting after I had quit my job,
The
and I think
accountant didn't look close
I
enough at
know,
his
dude.
accounting. What do you?
Dude, was
What
it
is
like the
this?
cobbler and the shoes or something like that?
Glossed over
Yeah,
that?
dude. I don't even want to go into it. I'm pretty bad with
That's right.
It's
We
not
don't
this.
need to go into
It's,
it.
I was gonna go into yeah. I know how to do the number stuff, but my personality, I'm not necessarily a dig into the details all the time guy. I'm a big picture guy, as they say.
Yeah.
So I usually sometimes let the numbers get behind. But I have a great bookkeeper now, and she's on top of it all the time, every month. Built that process in. But no, I
Good.
was gonna say I looked back, and it was like I think I made $1,000 or $2,000 the month that I like quit. And I needed like, my wife didn't work and I had 3 kids at the time. So I mean, I think we needed at least like $6,000 or $7,000 a month to just like pay our mortgage and other
Survive.
stuff. You know what I mean? So I looked back, I was like, oh crap, what did I do? But it'll work out.
But that pressure too makes you,
Yeah.
like you said before, it makes you figure it out. And I've been there. Honestly, I've had a point where I had under $50 in my bank account, and
Mm.
same thing. It's like it really,
Doesn't feel
really
good.
forces you to make one decision that not multiple. One, I mean, not not one, multiple decisions to really just propel you or take a step forward and understand like, hey, it's this or nothing. Like we're not going to survive, right? Like
When you got a lot of money in the
but
bank, it's easy to be like, "Ah, I'll do that. I'll do that tomorrow," or I'll be like, "Yeah, we'll get to that one next week." But when you're staring at single digits, you're just like, "We're doing
what
all of
is happening?
this right now." Yeah,
Yep. But
but
I think it's also a good habit, right? Like to just remember, like if you've been there, if you've ever been at that point, like try to remember or hold on to that feeling of like, oh shit, like this is happening. Like what
yeah,
did I do to get out of that? How did my mindset like shift from we got to go now. And what are we doing? And just a daily task to also remind yourself, like, hey, things could be worse if you are succeeding, you are successful right now. But
Mhm.
hold on to that drive and that motivation because it's helpful, even
Yeah.
when times aren't rough.
Yeah.
And even just pivoting points that you can really scale it or be able to
You
harness
know,
kind of that energy to
some
find a new
Dude,
opportunity.
sometimes I would try to well, what you're saying is true. Sometimes I felt like I was getting too comfortable, like, have like a couple good years, get some money in the bank, and I'd see those balances and I just like it causes you to take your foot off the gas a little bit. So I would go buy like treasury bills with them, like 28-day treasury bills. So it sucks the money out of your account. So
Yeah,
basically,
you don't see
you
it.
transfer it to this treasury and they give it back to you 4 weeks later with a little extra on top. But it like removes it from your balance. I mean, I guess you could have just transferred it to like another bank or whatever, but I wanted to like get it out. So then when I logged in, I kind of had like a little, oh, like a small gasp moment. And then like, oh,
Right.
that's right. I have that over there, but it changes your psychology a little bit to like, oh, I gotta keep going.
Absolutely. Well, I think, so you saw it a little bit, obviously any business owner, a little bit of a rocky start in some cases, maybe not any business owner, but you saw the opportunity, you went for it, you started kind of figuring out that, all right, part 107 is not really the only thing that I can keep
Yeah.
selling, right? You wanted to expand your knowledge or people's knowledge in the drone industry, so you went out and started finding instructors, right? I think your first one was it the aerial A to Z? Was that like your
Yeah.
first
Alex Harris. Yeah.
one after this? Yeah,
So he and I knew each other because when I was trying to figure out how to do Drone Launch Academy, dude, I knew nothing. I didn't know how to film anything. I had no idea how to edit stuff. I'm like, how do you even how do you put a course together? I was just trying to do
right.
research and figure this out. Well, I came across a YouTube video that's like, hey, if you want to learn how to just do like a talking head video like this, that sounds like this, that looks like this with the lighting and the camera and whatever, I got a $20 course where I just show you this exact setup. And I thought, boom, I'm in. So I bought it, and who was
20 bucks.
that? Alex Harris. He had that video, and that was his little course. But it was literally he just like emailed you as like a zip file of like PDFs and a couple of videos and stuff. Um, and it was very helpful. I ordered the camera, he said. I did all this stuff, and it turned out good. So when it came to the editing phase, I realized, oh my gosh, this sucks. Like I'm not good at editing, and this takes forever. So I actually just reached out to Alex Harris because his email address was on there, and I said, hey, Alex, this is David. I bought your course first off. It's great. Um, really underselling it. $20. I would have paid like 5 times more or more. Um, and I was like, second, do you want to do some editing work because I don't want to do this? So he's like, sure. So he actually did. He probably edited and did the animations for half of the Part 107 course. And then so he and I kind of became friends and chatting. And he had worked in Hollywood, and he was now working as like a freelance editor for some other people. And um, he had been getting into drones too, and he had used them for some jobs. And anyways, we eventually were like, oh, well, we should make a course together. And then the first course we actually made, actually the very first course was bombed after Part 107. So the very first course we made together was called Post Production Pro. It was all about just editing, like you just like get editing the footage, and also
Hmm.
Post Production Pro, like that's kind of jargony. People don't know exactly what that means. It was a bad name. And then I thought again, like, oh, I know how to do marketing because I'm successful with this other course now. Getting cocky, right? So the deal was like, all right, cool. I'll handle like the marketing stuff, and then you make the content. And we were staying up together late at night, going over sales pages and stuff. And I was like working till like 2 in the morning, and then going into the FBI. This was right about the time I quit the FBI. Well, we launched that
Yeah.
course, and like it got some sales, but then dude, it was like high refund rate because people got in there like this course is just like not that good. And I was like, oh, dang it. So we kind of went back to the
I
drawing
feel
board.
like post production, like, sorry, just to touch on that a bit, like, too. I feel like that's a tough area to get into. Like, there's so much to do with that. Like,
Yeah.
your expectations, people seeing it, they're like, there's so much a wide. Like, if you're doing a real estate marketing course, like you people know exactly what you're gonna get, right?
Yeah.
Like post production, like you could have so many
I
different
know.
people's opinions on what a course would be. But good, I mean, hey, probably the best thing that happened, one of the best things that could have happened to you, right? Like realizing that, like,
Yeah.
hey, we need to change the mindset or change the course
Yeah.
outlines, or yeah, how
So
did that kind of
yes, we got
what
some
happened after that?
feedback
Sorry, I
from
didn't mean to
people.
interrupt.
No, no, you're good. I'm like, so obviously that's a lot of people asking for refunds, being like, okay, maybe this wasn't very good. So we went back to the drawing board. kind of. We're just like, what do people not like about it? What is it? And to Alex Harris's credit, man, he worked hard on all this stuff. So we realized, all right, people want more like end to end. Like people don't know how to fly a drone and get good looking footage at all. So like you can only shine a turd so much. You know what I mean? So like you got to have like good footage to put in to make good edits and stuff. So we're like, hey, maybe we just need to teach the cinematography, like cinematic drone shots and the editing, kind of just like make all in one. Let's like all the way from A to Z. And we're like, oh, let's go, yeah, aerial video A to Z. So, right, cool. Aerial video A to Z. Again, to Alex's credit, went back and just kind of he's like revamped the whole course, and he did all this stuff, and he continually like put stuff in there. And to this day, like a new drone comes out, he buys it, he gets all the settings, he figures it out, like dives deep into it, and puts those lessons in the course. So like there's a specific settings and everything for every little thing for every drone in the course. He does a really good job of keeping it up to date. So we did that, and I'll give some inside stuff I haven't really shared before. So then we launch it and it goes fine. But then so we have these 2 courses, right? And then again, I'm newer to business, so I'm trying to figure out how to promote that and promote Part 107. And I'm just not doing a good job at like doing both of them, you know. And I found it's a little bit harder to promote the thing when you didn't make the thing. I've learned how to do it a little bit better over time, but you really need the creator of the thing to help
Yeah.
promote the thing, you know. So Alex was like, hey man, like I think we can get more sales from this. And I'm like, maybe, probably, I don't know. I'm probably not doing that good of a job at getting it out there. So he's like, hey, how about you let me like take a crack at doing some marketing too? And like, we'll work out a different deal where, you know, if I do some of the marketing, I get like a bigger portion of it. I'm like, all right, sure, go for it. So, so we tried some affiliates and that went like, okay. But then Alex was like, I'm just gonna learn how to run ads myself. And so he learned how to do ads, dude. He learned a lot of marketing stuff. He already knew how to do video editing, was really good at video, so he could create really good ads, you know. And if you've taken this up, you've seen he's a pretty funny guy too. So he writes for like clever, you know, scripts and in ads.
Mhm.
So yeah, he just started doing really good at ads, and so he started running his own ads, and just did really well thing, and it kind of took off. So so that's still going today, and it's really popular
Yeah.
course. But he worked his
I
butt off
took the course.
to did you? Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I took it before we even met. I think that's
oh really?
originally, honestly, how I don't even know if I've ever told you that, but yeah, that I think that's actually how I originally came across drone
Yeah,
launch was that course because
yeah.
I think I got an ad. I'm not gonna lie, from Alex. That was this aerial A to Z. But that was a man. That like 2018 or 2020 something like that when you guys created that course, or when was that?
Probably late 2018. Yeah, maybe early
Okay,
2019.
yeah,
Like
I'm
when it
almost
was coming out like that, like because in there it was, you know, like we had the whole post production pro attempt and some of that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, but that was at the height of like drones had kind of not they had already been in the market where they're on gimbals now. Like I think you had the Phantom 4 with like the
Yeah,
gimbal attached that wasn't a GoPro back in like 2017, 16, 17, something like that. I would say
yeah,
that that's kind of when that came out. So you had a couple years under your belt of like, all right, the drones are out there now that you can be successful with, right? Like you
yeah.
can. I think the Mavic series was probably out by then. The first Mavic,
The very first
you
one,
know,
yeah, probably.
Platinum or whatever it was.
Then they had the
Um,
you remember the Spark? They had that.
oh yeah, for
The ZS
sure. I
Spark.
had one
Yeah,
of those back in the day. Yep.
yeah.
But I mean, you hit it. I think you hit it a good time though. That's what I'm saying. Like trying to get at is like
Oh yeah.
you. It
No,
was
timing
like a
is.
first time.
Oh yeah, definite first mover advantage. We weren't first mover. Um, drone pilot ground school. They beat us by a little bit. Alan Perlman over there, he's a good friend of mine now. But yeah, he had a drone blog like I don't know, I want to say since like 2014. So he'd already built up a pretty good email list, and he knew how to do SEO and do all that stuff. So he was able to hit the ground running a lot more. And so then again, naively, I thought, oh, look what they're doing. That's easy. I could do that.
Mm.
I was so wrong. Um, and so, but no, but they beat us to it a little bit. But I think we came out with our course in like the test launched in August. I think ours was live in like October or something like that. So I think at the very beginning it was like Remote Pilot 101, Drone Pilot Ground School.
That remote pilot is what I took.
Yeah, they were pretty popular at the very
Like
beginning. I think they went,
something.
yeah. I think they went in, I don't know exactly. I think they're more focused on kind of the manned aviation stuff at this
Yeah.
point. Um, but but yeah, so I mean that was at the beginning, and then so we worked with Alex and got that course, and then we're like, hey, let's add another one. So we had one on photography. That was a little cheaper because photography is a little bit less complicated, and there's like a lot of free stuff out there on YouTube and stuff about like using Lightroom and whatnot.
Yeah.
We did one on photography, and then I think the next one we added was a roof inspection course because I had linked up with somebody on like a Facebook group or something, and we started chatting. And I think it's one of those things like, again, we just got to know each other a little bit, and I heard about what he did, and I was like, I get asked questions about that all the time. Can we just collaborate and make a course? Yeah, sure. So I did that in was it 2019? We did I think it was 2019. Did the like late 2019. Did a aerial roof inspection pro.
Hmm.
So that was for a while. And then 2020, again, I had met another guy, Root Patel. He told me about all he was doing. He was doing a bunch of mapping stuff and really cool things there. I was like, oh, we should make a course together too. So then we did a mapping course. So the business was like, all right, David, you just try to meet a lot of people in the drone industry. And every time you find someone that's doing something cool that you think other people would want to learn about, make a course together. And we've done different combinations of either just like paying people a bunch of money up front. And well, we usually give people options like pay them a bunch of money up front. And then like they almost like act as like a consultant. Some people we have like revenue share with over longer periods of time. But yeah, so the best people to work with for us are like, like they're doing it all day in the field normally as like their regular job, and they wouldn't otherwise go through the trouble of like trying to set up a platform and learn how to do digital marketing and
Hmm.
try to like build an audience and all that stuff. Because if you're already good at digital marketing and you know how to make courses and you know how to do ads and you already have like an email list, like I don't think drone launch would necessarily add much value to you if you're going to teach it anyway. So we're trying to find people like they don't really want to bother with that, but they'd love to like collaborate on a course. So that's when we can like find good partners.
And I think that's, it's a good business model in a way where you have figured it out at this point, right? Like you've been able to kind of go through the gamut of different courses and different people in different areas. So you'd be able to, again, you're not only providing that to people that want to take the course, but it's also like you got to almost look at it as like they're your clients in a way too, right? You need to get them in a way to help propel and expand, your service offerings in different areas and create new courses and new content, which I know you're doing a lot of as of late and continue to do, which is great to see because the drone industry is adapting and changing so much. I think
Yeah.
as you see more and more technology be put into the market and more pilots getting into it.
Hmm.
So I think it's great to see that you kind of continuously upgrading and changing
Yeah.
and adding more courses too.
Yeah. I mean, now we're focused a little bit more on, we'll still do some more courses. We have some new ones planned for next year. But those like big courses, they take a while. Like a lot. Those things are more effort than a lot of people. You watch them and you're just like, oh yeah, you just recorded some stuff. But it's a lot more work than it looks like. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been on the recording end of them with me. I remember I flew to Milwaukee in what 2020, late 2020 to film with you. And
Yeah.
everybody's an expert and they're so good at talking until you hit record on that camera. And then everybody's mind, it's just like you accidentally hit
Right?
the format SD card. It's just like gone.
Done.
Uh,
It's funny because now that you mentioned it, so yeah, David and I collaborated on a course. I was just a one section of a course that he has drones to 1K or the
yeah, that's right.
right? No, or yeah, sorry, I was thinking of the podcast name. I'm like, wait, no, it is the same
Yeah, they're
podcast
the
name.
same name
Drones
now.
to 1K.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It wasn't at the time. That's where I think it tripped me up, right?
Yeah, we
It
had it
was
as
different.
Drone Business Mastery and a bunch of different courses, and
Yeah,
we ended
that's what
up
it.
just like
Okay.
I was like, this is too much. We just consolidated it and just called
Yeah,
it
you
Drone to Web.
change it. Yeah, so I did a section in there on kind of sales and how to get, recurring clients and things like that. But it's funny because you hit the nail on the head. When you shoot content, like it's not something that at the time too. Like I was shooting a lot of content for clients. I was even a part of another business that I had with some partners that we were shooting production stuff, corporate stuff, shooting
Yeah.
interviews, and we would have people that would literally sit down and not even remember their name. Like when we first click record, it's like, this is your name. You own this company. And I had never, up to that point, like I had never felt more, I felt like uncomfortable in a situation where like I think I did okay in
Oh,
some
it's
after a
great.
while, but like there was like times like I was like, what am I saying? Like I am repeating myself, or I'm not saying what I'm thinking, or
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
different animal when you
It's
first
a
get on camera and you're trying to like formulate sentences and not. I think also is like taking the what you think people are gonna think of it, like,
yeah,
out of the
yeah,
context, because you're like, "Oh, that doesn't sound right," or "This doesn't sound right," and then it trips you up and you think about
yeah.
it, but, it is
It's
funny, right? Like
and it's one thing to know a lot about a topic, but it's another thing to be able to, in a very structured and concise way, communicate certain lessons in a certain order. So there's a lot more pre-work that goes into that kind of stuff. It's almost like writing a book about a topic
yeah,
and then putting it on video is really similar to what it's like, because you have to really structure it and like, okay, I'm going to talk about this, but they won't know about this thing, so I'm going to actually have to put a lesson before that that explains this, and then when it comes to like just regular topics, it's like, what are you trying to teach them? Like, where is someone going to start, and where at the end, what do they need to know by the end? It's a little bit easier to make a prep course, honestly, because they're just like, okay, here's the information you need to know to pass the test. It's very like
right, you need to
concrete,
pass it, yeah,
black and white. Like, here's what you need to know. But when it comes like
yeah,
drone cinematography, it's like, oh my gosh, the range of things you could talk about is so huge. Are you going to explain to someone
yeah,
like what a drone is? Like, no, they probably already know that. So like, you got to start later than that. But then, are you going to take them to
yeah,
be like shooting IMAX trailers? Like, well, probably not that far. So you got to like figure out where you're landing. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
there's a
So
lot of variance in it, right? And it's like also there's a lot of just up in the air of people. I mean, there's a plenty of trolls and other people on the internet that are gonna be like,
I
"Well,
know.
that's not accurate," or "This is wrong," or "You should use this," or "That's not the right way to do something." So I commend you for that, because I even though I helped teach some lessons and modules in that course, I feel as though it's a tough thing to do, to put yourself out there like that and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is how to do something."
Yeah.
And you just got to believe it and trust it and provide that value. But I think you've done a good job in finding templates and really just more also and giving people, not finding templates that provide value to people,
Yeah.
and things like that are inside of the course, and different ways to approach the whole business aspect as well, not
Yeah.
just one particular part. So
Yeah.
I think that's what you gotta do, right? Is be able to give people an end to end solution like you did with the A to Z course. Like that whole mindset is these days I've found too is like they just people want it done for them, or like lay
Yeah.
everything out.
Yeah.
And well, David, I think we've let everybody long enough in our conversation. I know me and you could talk for quite some time, but again, I appreciate everything that you've done to help educate drone pilots on different areas of in the industry, and continue to kind of grow, and leaving a legacy of your own in the industry. So I always like to just end about how people can reach out to you, how can they help you, anything that you want to close with, and we can wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It's nice to have me be on your podcast once that you're normally on ours.
Full
You've
circle.
helped me a lot over the years, especially with all the different courses we've done and stuff. Where people can find me, I think we're at Drone Launch on Instagram. So you can DM me there. I sometimes delete Instagram off my phone because I get too distracted with it. But if I don't respond to you there, you can just email me at david@dronelaunchacademy.com, and I should be able to see your email come through. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. As far as how people can help me, I mean, I don't know. I just say maybe check out Drone Launch Academy if there's anything there you're interested in, or maybe just check out the podcast that you've been on several times, Drone to 1K. There's a lot of good stories there, especially if you're like an aspiring entrepreneur. There's a lot of good content there. I just interview other drone pilots like you used to be. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. There's a lot of great episodes. I've listened to a lot of them. Some really cool people on there as well. So David, thanks again for hopping on, and everybody, thanks for listening. I'm trying to be better at it as well as closing. So help help us out by, comment, like, sharing, whatever you got to do. We appreciate it.
Love
And
it.
we'll catch you on the next episode. So happy flying, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Cody.